These people have way too many kids. Like, come on, close up shop already. Hi there, I'm Roux. Welcome to my video where I talk about whatever I want. And today I want to talk about the Duggars. So when I put out my poll asking you which purity culture pushing people did you want me to talk about, the Duggars came in second after the transformed wife. So that's what we're doing today. If you're a TLC fan, you probably know who the Duggars are, because that's their claim to fame. They were stars on the hit reality show 19 Kids and Counting on TLC. Yes, their entire fame came from popping out kids like there's no tomorrow. I feel like it's in the same genre of like Honey Boo Boo, where it's like you're watching a family and it's just like crazy, and that's why you're watching, you're like morbidly interested in their lives, but also like there's some disturbing weird shit going on. Yes, I feel like it's the same thing going on with the 19 Kids and Counting. The whole premise of the show is this couple, Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, showing their lives with their ever-growing family. They don't believe in birth control, they're like crazy Christian, they're part of this Quiverful movement, which is an extreme form of Christianity where people don't believe in birth control and they just want to have a quiver full of children, because they compare children to a quiver full of arrows that you shoot into the world to spread Christianity. Because apparently there's a religious war going on, and if you can outpopulate the other religions, you've won. Yeah. The children are named Josh, Jana and John David, Jill, Jessa, Ginger, Joseph, Josiah, Joanna, Jedediah and Jeremiah, Jason, James, Justin, Jackson, Johanna, Jennifer, Jordan, Grace, and Josie. All of their names start with a J, just like Jim Bob, because he really loves himself and he wants all of his children to be named after his first name letter. I very strongly think he's a narcissist. Their beliefs are really misogynistic. The girls are encouraged to not have an education. They have to wear certain clothing, just long skirts, cover it up, basically just like a Midwestern American version of a burqa. The girls have to do all of the chores and take care of everyone, whilst the boys can do whatever they want. Yeah, it's really misogynistic. They also believe in something called joyfully available, which is where women are not allowed to say no to their husbands when it comes to sexual intimacy. You have to be joyfully available, which means that when he wants sex, you have to say yes, and you have to seem like you're happy about it. Michelle, the wife, has been interviewed and people asked her like, how can you possibly be joyfully available to your husband when you literally have like 19 kids to take care of and there's like babies all the time? And she literally was like, oh yeah, you know, like I might have like spit up on my shirt and I just like fed the baby and I'm exhausted, but I just lie down and let him do his thing and then, you know, I go back to do my thing, which is an incredibly sad statement. So what led them to be like so extreme about everything? They were actually kind of normal in the beginning. They were completely average. When they met, they fell in love. They were teenagers. Both of them were Christian, but they were not like part of this extreme quiverful thing. When they met, they fell in love, they got married, and they waited 4 years before they had their first kid, aka they used birth control, which they now vehemently are against. But then something snapped in them. Apparently, Michelle had a miscarriage, which is incredibly sad, but they decided it was because of birth control, which I find odd. I mean, it must have been in like the 80s or something. Maybe the birth control that was available wasn't as regulated and maybe had like crazy side effects, but birth control really just makes your uterine lining or whatever, like creates like a thick slime wall so that the semen can't get through. So I find it odd to say that she had a miscarriage because of oral birth control, but what do I know? Maybe like she was on birth control, wasn't aware she was pregnant, it had failed, and then her continuing taking birth control pills made her have a miscarriage because, you know, it was not as regulated and not as good back in the day. I don't know. But after that, they decided to just go full ham into the crazy and just have as many children as God would bless them with, which is the whole foundation of this Quiverful movement. So they just kept on having kids. Also, after they became part of this movement, they also started to homeschool their kids, because that's also part of the Quiverful movement, where you don't want your children to have their own opinions or grow their own personality, so you limit their contact with the outside world and basically isolate them so you can indoctrinate them real good. So it's crazy to think that Michelle, because they have a very misogynistic sort of setup where like the women do everything, it's crazy to think that Michelle would be homeschooling 19 children and being pregnant all of the goddamn time. Turns out, she hasn't been taking care of her own children for years. She's been making her daughters do it. I don't understand why people keep having like a bunch of kids if they're not planning on taking care of them and being their, sole caretaker. You're the parent, that's your responsibility. If you have to make your older children take care of their siblings because you have too many kids, then you should not be having that many kids. Like, what the hell? But apparently that's the way they did it. They groomed the girls into becoming perfect little wives according to their beliefs, and they made the girls raise the younger children. And they weren't really looking after their kids. Which explains how the scandal that got them taken off of TV happened. They had for years gotten a lot of criticism where people wanted them taken off the air because they were like anti-LGBT, they were anti-women's rights, they were like just campaigning aggressively and very like hatefully attacking other people who didn't agree with them, and people were just, disgusted by the fact that these people still had a TV show and got paid to be on the air when they were so full of hate. One of the children, who was staunchly anti-LGBT, anti-just everything, women's rights, anti-pornography, anti-just everything, and, the whole family just holier than thou, turns out that they're not so holier than thou. The oldest son, Josh, who had campaigned for all of those things, like anti-porn, porn is horrible, like it's awful, it's like sinful, and anti-LGBT, anti-choice when it comes to like women's health, everything. Turns out that he is a big fat hypocrite. I mean, no one's surprised. It's always the people who are the most anti-something when it comes to like frivolous things, like why are you anti-gay people? Like how does that affect you? What other consenting adults do to each other? Like, I don't understand. It's always those people who are the hypocrites. And in this case, it came out that he had been on Ashley Madison. Ashley Madison was a website where you could sign up to have extramarital affairs, as in people who were married who wanted to cheat. The website got leaked, and a lot of names were leaked out. One of them was his. First, he denied it, and then he admitted it. And then he was like, actually, I'm a porn addict. No one's surprised. Of course, it's the anti-porn guy who's just like, I'm just like so holier than thou, who's like fucking cheating on his wife, and who's on a website dedicated to cheating. No one's surprised. I feel also like the way he was raised made this his personality. Like, if you're raised in a toxic environment where one gender, the girls, are expected to take responsibility for everything, and you don't have to do anything because you're a boy, and even if you were to do something wrong, the girls would be blamed because, it's always the girl's fault. No wonder he became this person. But what also came out, and this is the most disturbing part, is that he had molested 5 young girls when he was a teenager. 2 of them were his sisters. Again, I go back to the upbringing where the parents are not looking after their children. They're making the children take care of each other, so no one's really supervising them. And they're also creating a dynamic where boys aren't held accountable for anything, because when the family realized that he had molested little girls, 2 of them his sisters, they didn't really hold him accountable. They blamed it on the girls. They said, oh, maybe, what did you do to make him do this? Were you acting in a certain way? What were you wearing? Which is absurd because they were all wearing like Midwestern burqas, the equivalent of. So for it to be their fault, disgusting. And he wasn't held accountable, and his punishment was being sent away to a like Christian work camp for a couple of weeks or something. Like a month or something, couple of months, a couple of weeks, which, what? I don't think you get cured from being a child molester by going to a work camp. Like, you can't work that away. There's something severely flawed in your character for you to do that. It's disgusting. And that the parents would be like, no, it's the girl's fault. The girls need to start acting differently. And maybe it was them who like inspired him, because obviously it's always the woman's fault. Even if she's sexually assaulted, she must have done something, said something, worn something. It's just so sexist and disturbing. I feel like their whole family is just rooted in this intense, archaic sexism. And I don't think they do a good job at raising their kids, because they don't raise them, they force them to raise each other. It's just disturbing. A lot of the children have come out later and split from the family. When they became adults, they went out into the outside world basically and were like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this at all. And holy shit, I've been sheltered. And this is like disturbing, the things we've been taught about like gender equality and everything like that. Inequality in their family. I just feel like the whole family is just the father wanting to control things. He ran for like Senate or something, so he likes to have control over other people, because if you were like a government employee like that, you know, you'd be in control of a lot of people, and, you know, you'd have a say over a lot of people. And I think that's basically his whole family dynamic, where he was just like, my wife is just gonna have to sleep with me whenever I want because God said so. Also, like, my wife will be doing all of the chores because God said so. Also, we're going to name all of our children after me because I'm the man. Also, what's come out is that he's so controlling, the father, Jim Bob, that even though these kids, even as adults, when they were part of this show and spin-off shows after the first show just imploded because of the scandal, there was like more shows after that where like Counting On, with like the older children with their own families, like after they became adults, they haven't been paid a friggin' dime. Jim Bob gets all the money, and he doesn't let them have anything. Because if you give them the money, then they can, like, I don't know, have freedom, independence, and choose to go against you. And he's not about that. No, then he can't control them. The fact that TLC would let that happen and not make sure that everyone was fairly compensated is fucking crazy. I just think this family is just a picture-perfect example of, if you can't take care of your children, you shouldn't have that many. Like, you should only have as many children as you can take care of yourself. When you start to have to rely on your other children to take care of the children you're popping out, you're abusive. It's not okay. And then it's not about the kids at all, it's just about you. It's just... Apparently this Quiverful movement too, it's more about popping out kids, not about taking care of them. Like, you're not really... important after you're already born. It's more about like popping out as many as possible, so like you don't get as much attention as you need, which is in a lot of religious settings where the more kids you have, the better. That's what happens, because like, oh, you just pop them out, another one. They don't really care about how the kids are treated, and it's just sad. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it for now. Do comment below, what do you think? It's just crazy. This family is crazy. Too many kids. If you can't take care of them, stop having them. Yeah, comment below. Thank you so much for coming by. Remember, every day's real talk, Wednesdays true crime, Reddit readings on Fridays. Please subscribe. You're awesome for coming by and supporting me. You make it possible for me to do this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to my wonderful patrons, Katbra, Madalena Vuska, Cami, and Ellie. If anyone's interested in becoming my patron, there's a link below, especially nifty when it comes to the touchy subjects that will no doubt be demonetized. But yeah, thank you. Love you. Bye.